Yeah.
So waiting up on that.
Yep. And
Good.
I'm on the Twitch site so I can monitor chat. It looks like we're live.
So why don't you do the intro, Jonah, while I pull it up on my phone?
All right. Well, welcome one and all to World Salad, your mostly bi-weekly world building Twitch stream podcast show stream of consciousness device. My name's Jonah, and next to me is your primary host, John. Say hi, John.
Ahoy, hoy!
Close enough. On this show, we do lots of different kind of world building processes where we can try to figure out different NPCs to fill a world, make a world itself, make a specific place within a world, figure out campaign hooks, things like that.
Oh, I was
I
just getting
heard
some
an
kickback. Yeah.
yeah, I heard an ad for Audible. Fun. Uh, the last few times we've been doing this show, we've been doing a segment called 60-minute settlements, wherein in the hour we have for our show, we try and fully devise a singular location within your next role playing game experience. Tonight, however, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. John, why don't you tell us what we're going to be doing tonight?
Well, I was thinking about doing, and I just want to make sure that I can hear myself. Yep, perfect, perfect. Yeah, I was thinking about doing. Well, okay. How about this? There's a couple of things that we could do, and I have a few things kind of jostling on in the brain.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to do a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately you weren't available.
Sorry,
Um,
guys.
I was listening to a podcast, and they were. So let me put it this way: I was listening to a role play podcast, and there was the final episode, or at least the wrap up or whatever it was, and it just was a
Mhm.
bit underwhelming. And I was thinking about the campaign as a whole and whatnot, and it made me think about like what makes a good villain, or
Okay.
what would be a good villain. And it got me wanting to create a villain on the show. You and
Okay.
me together.
Rolling back a second, you don't need to go into specifics, but what was the podcast you were listening to?
It was the Adventure Zone.
Oh, Adventure Zone. Okay.
You've heard about it, right?
I mean, who is into RPGs and hasn't heard of the McElroys in some way or another?
I am a fan of their stuff. But I am not gonna lie that the last season was definitely divisive to say the least.
Hmm.
I think ultimately the biggest failing of it was that it made a lot of I mean, look, we've all done mistakes when doing D&D, when running
Yeah.
it for people and whatnot. But I
I mean,
feel
I
like
think that could be a show in and of itself, like,
I
easy
feel that
mistakes to
it
avoid.
I feel that it didn't really take any criticism that was floating out there in a positive way, instead of just
Okay.
saying, well, all this criticism is negative, so these people must all just not like us, or this must be all like
Mm,
overly negative, so let's not focus on that. Well, not realizing, well,
right.
sometimes when things are critical, there's a pretty good justification or reason for that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I was trying to think of like, all right, so like if I was to try to do like a new campaign myself, like what would the villain's motivation be?
Hmm.
When I had Dave from Game Master Games on the last episode, I helped him with something. He actually needed a good motivation for like a villain faction for something he was working on, and then we were talking about another villain as well. The one that I came to mind was almost like a smaller scale, like a crime boss. Like it was essentially like a
Okay.
handler turned evil, and the way that it kind of came about, or the ultimate end result, was what if you had like that NPC who kind of gives you your missions, and then they just kind of turn on you, like halfway through the campaign, or like a good like 1/4 of the way in, and now
Okay.
you have to like kind of start from scratch or whatever. And granted, I mean, it's been done before. Like, backstabbing tropes are fairly common, but it was like a good reason for this person betraying you, not just like
Yeah.
like a evil for the sake of evil. I think the justification was this person's neck was on the line, and it was either you or them. So it was like, they didn't want to put their sums on the chopping block. So like it was like, well, I hate to say it, but like it's gonna be you guys.
Yeah.
And that'd be a good motivation, especially like if you like the guy, because that'd be like a good motivation of motivation of like, we want to get revenge, but we are conflicted to some degree.
Yeah, like they already have this relationship with this character, and they have to wonder, did they turn on us out of malice, or was it just to stay with their own hide? Do we care about that? All lovely RP stuff that you handle at the table.
Well, so now let's try to put this another way. So I was trying to think of, like I said, villains, or like a villain. It could be a number of them. Like we could
Hmm.
either do something where we kind of go with some of the random roles and see what inspiration comes forth, or we can try to come up with a centralized idea. Um, I guess it's a matter of like, what do you what would it's since it's been a while since you've been on, Jonah. What do you what's your choice?
I I so when I'm thinking of my own campaigns, I like to think of what is my villain, like what is my central overarching driving force of conflict in the campaign, and then what are my antagonists along the way. I think the antagonists can be independent of whatever's going on, but are largely informed by the world, the players, and even your villain. I think where it starts is coming up with that central villain that, for me, I like to base my campaigns around.
Okay. Now, do you always like to base your campaigns around a central villain, or mostly just around like a conflict that you then kind of fill in the gaps in for?
Mostly it's a conflict. I think about a struggle that the players could have as like a central focus for their adventuring, and then work backwards from, okay, well, who or what could have done this. Like in the current campaign that I run and Into the Odd, the main conflict is, I mean, maybe it's not best word as conflict, but the main driving force of the campaign is they're finding these magical items that have the souls of great heroes stuffed inside of them. And they're trying to find the person who did that. And I built up this big mythos within the campaign setting of, you know, crazy King Darian who stuffed these heroes into objects. Why would he do this? What is the reason? No one's seen him for centuries. Like, is he still around even?
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been like tossing around a few ideas in my head over like the issue is I want to run something, but it's mostly just so that well, all right, let me rephrase that. I'm not in the middle of any games right now. My Wednesday game,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because of Dan's new baby, which is on the way, kind of fell through, along with his schedule kind of being tossed up in the air.
Right.
Um, the Friday night thing, Rich got burnt out because of his job, which is understandable.
Mm.
So he's not really feeling the mood for running anything either. And even the campaign I was doing before Dan took over, I think I might have mentioned it on the show before. I was kind of feeling a bit like deflated in that like I had my hopes up on running something, but just
Hmm.
wasn't getting the kind of energy I wanted from all the players. So it kind of like
Yeah, I get that.
dipped a bit. So I will be honest. It was a bit directionless. I was like, I want to run something, and I thought that it would kind of just come naturally, and it didn't exactly
I've
work out.
also been there. I
No,
knew.
that that can come about, but the problem with that then is you need your players to be like engaging and being like looking out for stuff, and when they're instead of kind of expecting you to kind of lead them from one point to the next, then that's your fault. Of like, all right, you want to give them some creative freedom, but if they have no direction whatsoever,
Hmm.
you don't want them just kind of stumbling in their path. So I was trying to think of like, all
Yeah.
right, if I run a campaign, if I do something myself, it's got to be something different. And I'm trying to think of like, what would I want to do? And a couple of ideas are kicking around, some stuff that's flowing out there. And I think I would want to do something different with like you're all prisoners on like a prison colony, kind of like a
Hmm.
fantasy Australia, in a sense of like well, let me rephrase that. You're in a place that's basically a prison. Even if it's like a continent, it's designed to kind of just people get dumped there and get left behind.
Right.
And the players could be there for multiple reasons or another. Did they choose to go to prison? Were they forced to go to prison? Stuff like that. And then it's
Hmm.
like, well, how do you handle the motivations? And you could kind of go a couple of different directions with that. You could easily go with like, okay, well, you got to have a crooked warden. You got to have somebody who's like, totally is fine with keeping the people in there. Or even if it's not like the warden themselves, you could have like a corrupt guard who's kind of flexing. It could be
Hmm.
that there's some larger force that's out there kind of keeping the people stuck where they are. and not letting them leave. And it's like, all right, well, like we have to keep these people, here, or it's like, these people are a danger to our plans elsewhere, so we need to kind of keep them out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of like a strong core motivation. Like what's like an actual thing or whatnot that's going on. I mean, because you could go with a
So
lot of smaller sub things, like like a rival like prison gang and stuff like that. But like,
yeah, so I mean, this might just be me, but when I hear the words "I'm in a prison," my first thoughts are, how do I get out?
exactly.
Even even if I'm there of my own volition, I'm not necessarily going to want to be there for the whole time. Especially considering how crooked this prison might be, there might never be an actual release unless you escape yourself. So I think as the DM, you need to make the players realize that they want to escape. You can do the thing where for the first like couple sessions, they it's a very latent desire if it's present at all in them, but you need to make them realize the prison is not where they want to be. Uh, so yeah, I think to get there, we can build in these antagonists of the crooked warden, the overly brutal guards, even like
Yeah.
a lot of gang factions
So
inside.
let's try to come up with like four key antagonists, one overarching one, and then and maybe like build up from there. So we kind of start like on the macro and work our way up. I want to get a
Hmm.
quick drink though, so give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Cool. I will also take a quick drink.
No, like we can't both go off the camera.
John, this is our. Also, my water's here.
Oh, there you go.
I come prepared for this show, John.
Ha ha.
Remember professionalism. Oh God. Viewers at home, stay hydrated. It's very important, especially as the weather's getting warmer here in the northern hemisphere. Uh, so yeah, I guess I'll vamp for a little bit while John's gone. I think we've already come up with the archetypes for a couple of these smaller antagonists, and well, at least three of them. We've recognized a warden, guards, and then gangs. And at least as far as I look at things,
Look, I was fine when we started, and I just like grew thirsty. I just couldn't keep it at bay.
I mean, John, we spend an hour at our screens, each talking for about 30 minutes. We're going to get thirsty.
So
So, as I was explaining to the viewers, like, we've already recognized three broad archetypes for antagonists a crooked warden, brutal guards, and gangs. And I kind of want to stray away from the idea that each antagonist has to be one person. You can
yeah,
view the whole guard, like the whole crew of guards, as an antagonist because they all have similar motivations and similar wants. And similarly, you can look at the concept of gangs and factions within the prison as another antagonist that the players have to overcome. So I think now that we've identified those three main ones, the fourth one we need to identify. Uh, now, I'm when I think of prison archetypes, I think there's always one person in the prison that can get you stuff from the outside. That way, you always have that taste of comfort. I
okay.
think this person doesn't need to necessarily be antagonistic, but they're an opposing force from the players, which in my mind makes them an antagonist.
I had a thought that just kind of randomly popped into my head,
Yeah, go
and
for it.
this is gonna probably make you laugh, but I'm just trying to figure out how we would make this work with this first issue. And the Monopoly guy.
Mr. Monopoly, the man with the mustache, yeah.
Yeah. What if
What
he's like
about
the
him?
what if he's the head of the prison gang, or like something the equivalent of him?
The prison gang or the prison?
No, the prison gang. Like again, like not grand scale things. Keep it small to start. So like, what if you have a gang of like former, like instead of being like the prison ruffians, it's like no, it's former former people who were well off who got stuck in prison because, in fantasy prison, there's probably a multitude of reasons for why somebody would be arrested or thrown in there,
Yeah.
and has like managed to somehow get comforts through, but they're not gonna get out of there. Like I'm just thinking of like it's just something that
Uh-huh.
kind of popped in my head. So it's like, how do you make that work? Because then it could be like, yeah, they could be both the people who are supplying things for the prison. They're low level enough that like they're kind of tolerated because they actually keep people civil,
Uh-huh.
but also probably know that like if they do too much, they could be bad. So like they're gonna eventually have to like kind of like put the hammer down.
I I mean, if I'm being honest, you had me sold at Monopoly Man in
But also like
prison.
the idea of like go directly to jail. I'm thinking like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, John, I want to kiss your brain sometimes because you come up with just the best things.
ooh, what do we call them? The miser. The miser.
Yeah, that's fine. You can call him Jeff for all I care. I love him.
So yeah, he's in prison. He was like a former like it doesn't even matter what. It could have been that he was like he owned a bank and then like
Oh,
thought like
to go off of this, I kind of like the idea that he's some kind of like pseudo immortal being. So he's been in prison far, far, far
yeah,
longer.
I wouldn't go that far.
No,
If
oh,
you
okay.
really if you really want to play fast and loose with this, you could be that he's like the third generation like prison miser of like it was a family of wealth that was both so wealthy that they ended up not being wealthy, but also never got out of prison. Like it could be like one of
Okay.
those things.
Sure.
Of
Yeah,
like
that's
again,
fine.
again, like you figure out the justification for why, but it could be that like yeah, no, if you in
Hmm.
this fantasy setting, if you do something that upsets the king or the emperor or whatever it is, your whole family line to some degree could be like all right, like no,
Yeah,
like anybody
yeah.
born into this family is thrown in prison, but it could be like libertarian enough that they respect the idea of like ownership. So it's like, look, he owns the mines. He just will just all of his money is going to go to a central bank, that like then he gets a stipends, sent to the prison. But
Sure.
also like, and then it just kind of passes through, or it just could be just one dude. Like I'm just saying, like if you want to have it where like this guy's been there forever, I like the idea of like somebody who's so rich that they're both, constantly they're passing money down hand over foot to everybody, all the descendants, but still can't buy their way out of prison.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely like a pretty funny like juxtaposition. And I mean, again, just you can
Or
sell
or
anybody,
or, or it could be
John.
that
You
like
can
or it could be
sell
that they
anybody
hide it.
on this idea by explaining it's Mr. Monopoly, but in jail.
Right. So I mean, I guess it's a
So
matter of like what's their motivation is like. Yeah, well, they probably realize that like if they leave the prison, they'll probably be killed for a multitude of reasons. Not just by not. It could also be like they have enemies, so it's like the
mhm.
prison's actually the safest place for them to be. And the arrangement's working out just fine, so they're perfectly fine with like keeping things around. And again, it could be one of those things of like the higher ups in the prison have no problem dictating them to kind of keep some level of peace and order, but as a result, like they have like their own security force. Like
Yeah,
they're not even guards; they're just other prisoners who act as guards for the guards to make their job easier.
yeah, that's great. Like,
Are you typing
and
any of this up? I'm just curious. Like,
oh no, I'm not typing any of this up, John. I'm not taking any notes.
all right, because like only because I'm throwing stuff out there. So like, I'll do it then. Well,
Cool. Yeah, I tend to keep a pretty good track of what we come up with in the moment. Yeah, I just don't really write things down. So, but I also love the idea that by coming up with this one character, the miser, we're working in their relationship to the guards, the warden, and the other people in the prison, like the various gangs. Like we've already established motivation and relationships for this one person whose motivating idea was, what if Mr. Monopoly was in jail? I cannot get over that. That's amazing. So, I mean, I'm satisfied with what we come up with for this one guy. Do you now want to flesh out a couple of the gang factions?
Well, hold on.
Okay, holding on.
I actually would want to say like the gangs we can kind of um like the gangs. I for anything like I like the idea of like them being the prison gang. Like the prison gang is this this industrialite who just kind of like treats the prison almost like not like a work camp, but just kind of like I'm gonna keep things in order, and as a result, like all the people who do what they're supposed to do, it's like either it's almost like conscripted labor or something. Like it's a spin on the gang. It's the idea of like, yeah, there's this group that controls the gang. They have no affiliation whatsoever, but they're tolerated just enough, and yet they're able to thrive because people often can't overthrow them,
Okay, so two questions. One, what are you drinking?
apple juice.
Ah, yes, classic. Second question. So there's one gang and everyone works for it? Like, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
You probably have like smaller gangs of like just like a group of people, but I'm thinking
Hmm.
of like just like this one like criminal organization in the game. Like instead of having like a mafia or something
Okay.
like that. I mean, there could also be like a couple of handfuls of like guys here and there. I'm thinking like big villain stuff. Like if you need to do like a little fight or something like that, and you need to just whip up a gang on the fly.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure
Like
you can come up with that.
if you're thinking of how you would, I guess, order the events in the campaign, the first main obstacle the players have to get past is the miser and his crew, which is the majority of the inmates, I would assume.
Not the majority of them, but like the toughest. Because if you're
Okay,
tough enough,
sure.
you probably get either well if you're one if you're tough enough, the guards just kill you, or they allow you to possibly get killed, or like I said, the miser basically pulls you into his payroll, and it's like you're just doing their
Hmm.
dirty work.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I'm thinking like so for another villain for this setting slash campaign, I kind of would want to do something that's like more animalistic in nature, like something
Hmm.
where I don't know, like it's maybe like an intelligent creature. So like it's a threat that's kind of like also like it's used as a deterrent. Like it knows that there's food here. It knows that the guards won't provoke it as long as it only keeps like a certain thing. So I'm wondering like I'm thinking of it like a TV show. Like season one
Sure.
is he dealing with the miser, and then when you finally get out with him, okay, now let's get now we managed to get outside the prison, and like all right, like the next area is like this wooded area where there's like just some big intelligent creature who has full run. So it's like, yeah, the guards surprisingly don't follow you outside the prison once you manage to get outside get away from
Because
the
they
miser's
know there's a
forces.
cleanup crew that's going to. Okay. So in this case, is the warden even a character that means anything?
Now, in a sense, there's probably somebody who monitors, like, so the thing that just kind of popped into my head is think of it almost like a snow globe. You have all the contents of the prison inside the globe, and there's somebody who's holding it from the outside looking down. So it could be that like the warden is this very powerful wizard, or it could be like a like a very powerful creature like a vampire or a mind
Hmm.
flayer or what are those weird cats with the backward hands?
Rakshasas.
Yeah, something like that. Something like
Okay.
this place is for real like a dangerous place, and this guy like is perfectly fine. Like, and the warden would probably like have to step in as let's say the players kind of start to deal with some of the stuff that's going on. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So they're like a presence. There's something that's always known, and you could very easily just have that by like an elite force of the guards. Like there's like like the SWAT team. Like there is a group of black guards who are used if any threat shows up that's too much to handle or too much of a risk of getting out, and
Okay.
they're brutal. They just stomp out anything. So like the
So let me actually expand upon some of the stuff you just said.
sure.
When you were spitballing what the warden could be. You said wizard, and you were saying that they're looking down on the prison as though it were a snow
Maybe
globe.
not literally, but like just
Well, no, John. I'm saying let's take it literally. Let's say that this prison is inside like a demiplane.
okay.
That there's the prison, then there's like the natural area, which contains like one or several of these, bestial predators that are going to hunt down any escaped inmates. And then if you get past all that somehow, you just hit the wall of like you've hit the end of the demiplane. So going with your seasonal ideas, season one, they deal with the miser. Season two, it's more of like a survival thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of season two, they realize they can't leave in the normal way. Season three, they go back to the prison and they try to figure out a plan to deal with the warden. And then season four is the jailbreak proper, where they do like, season three is all about gathering allies and gathering information. Season four is when they storm the castle, if you want to call it that.
Right.
How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I'm liking it.
Yeah, and we could even say like in the gap between like in the time between the players leaving and coming back to the prison, there could be someone or several someones who've tried to take, you know, I guess, fill the power vacuum that was created when the miser was either defeated or, killed or whatever happens.
I I mean I like that idea. Well, I like the idea of like them trying to literally escape and then realizing that they have to actually go back, and then it's like, layer on layer. It's like, all right, like,
Mm-hmm.
the actual only way to escape is through the prison itself. But we kind of glossed over, or at least we didn't develop this thing that we were talking about, this natural force or creature. So, like, what are some good intelligent monsters that would be something of, let's just realistically say, like, probably level 5 or 6, because it's like, you start the players off at level 1, or even, like, if you want to be generous, you could do level 3 and then just bump it up an extra 2 levels or something like that.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I have never looked at the monster manual for D&D 5e. I
Really?
have no idea what a level 5 monster is. Yeah. I have almost never used the monster manual for any D&D thing that I've ran.
So, I mean, what's something else we could do? There's a couple of different ways. You could also just come up with something.
Yeah.
You don't have to
I mean,
necessarily have it be
yeah,
real.
like I don't think we need to come up with a game stats because I think we want to make this somewhat system agnostic. But so one, I like the idea that there's more than one of this creature, because when I'm thinking about the scale of this place, I'm thinking it's a rather large facility, the prison, and then the wooded area is like even bigger than that. We want to make it very hard for anybody to think they can escape, and I would like the process of escaping to have the intention of demoralizing anyone who's attempting it. Uh, as far as what it could be, I mean, I'd hate to plagiarize this hard, but what if we took the Predator and like put a D&D spin on that?
Like, have it be something that, like, hunts people?
Yeah, I'm thinking of like, the most dangerous game kind of scenario. Maybe not like exactly as intelligent as that, maybe a bit more like bestial and animalistic, but something that does this with intention, not just,
Hmm.
because it's hungry right now.
What about, what about sloths?
What is a slod?
You've never seen a sloth?
I will.
They're like toad-like lizard creatures who are they have magic, I believe, and there's usually a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking, like, instead of just being like one creature, it could be one thing that dictates or controls like several other ones. Or, just go with something that a lot of people like take for granted, like troglodytes, or take like a lesser focused monster. You know what troglodytes are, right?
I don't
They're,
think I
they're
know how to
like they're like
D&D.
lizard folk, but they smell real bad.
Oh, great.
I mean, there's a
Oh,
number of
okay.
things you could
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could even go with something that's undead. Like there's like like you said, there's this thing that's in the woods that's like some kind of like an intelligent right or like or even like a lesser form of like a lich who like yeah, once you get out of the woods, this thing hunts people and then it just kind of forms them into their pack. Although I kind of like the idea of like a cult. Like if even if people do manage to escape, they went into like this weird bestial cult that's out there that like loves to mess around with anything that's dumb enough to kind of get into its neck of the woods, but also probably like doesn't get that many of them. You know what I mean? Like it
Hmm.
could be one of those things where like there's a lot of like almost like you inadvertently bring the prison to their attention. Like, I'm trying to think of like what's there could be a couple of things that could be good with that. Like, yeah, let me get my actual copy of the monster manual.
Okay.
I'm not against
Uh,
your predator idea. I'm just trying to think of like what could
yeah.
work.
No, no. I like the way you're taking it too. I mean, I think also if you want to work in, I mean, the troglodyte does seem like a lesser known D&D monster that would be a fun, I guess, spin on the concept. Uh, I think if you're also looking for playing a numbers game, you could even have the troglodyte being the general for a squadron of kobolds.
It's a troglodyte. Hold on. Savage,
Sure.
degenerate troglodytes squat in shallow depths of the Underdark. They mark their borders with cracked bones and skulls. They eat anything they can stomach. They dwell in filth. Their homes are smeared with grime, oily secretions, and the debris of
Mm.
feastings. Simple-minded, although again you can kind of make them a little bit smarter. Some troglodytes venerate Lagos, a monstrous fat toad lizard that slumbers in the abyss. He offers them nothing in return except for aspiration, for it's the dream of his troglodyte worshippers to become as fat, well-fed, and wearily content as he seems to be.
Hmm.
So what if you do where like there's a race of troglodyte that just want to eat, and the problem is because of the prison, like so few, like other than like catching game, like they don't run into anything humanoid. So they're they're a bit more athletic, but they just want to eat and fatten up. So like the idea of like you being like the first real food that they went into in a while is something that they actually want to pursue. And then they also like it
Hmm.
could be that they now they're starting to like I don't it's got to be something that like again it has to be something that would be clever and intelligent enough to attack anything or hunt anything that kind of enters into like the surrounded wildness around the jail.
Hmm.
Is probably smart enough to know that the jail itself is maybe not necessarily the best thing to attack. Um,
Yeah.
but considering the fact that the miser was pretty much the only guard, the actual quote unquote guards, because you could even say like if the prison, you think of it as like, oh, you guys are on the lowest level, which is like like it could be the rumor that like oh they keep the hardened prisoners up in the like I'm thinking like all right, picture a prison. What else? There's one large ground area, not like a floor because I want to make it look like it's enclosed. It could just be like almost like a castle, and then the prison itself is like this large structure in the center. And everybody thinks that that's where the really bad prisoners are kept, but in reality, that's just where people escape. That's where
Right.
the crux between here and wherever else is located. Um, I mean, amongst other things, there could be other uses for the center prison itself. So it's like, yeah, like the actual guards, they're not guarding the escape from the prison level, they're guarding the entrance into the tower. So it's like, as long as the slots or whatever we come up with don't make a run for that, they're perfectly fine letting everybody else just get torn apart.
Hmm.
Also, could be like feline in nature, like a very large, intelligent like cat or like, like a and then it has like like cat folk who like worship it or whatever.
Yeah. That makes sense. And again, we don't need to go hard on what kind of monster. We can take elements of troglodytes, sloths, some kind of feline creature. Like
Yeah,
it's really up to whoever's running this to fill in those blanks. We're just coming up with more of a template or an outline for how this creature or group of creatures should behave.
So now that we've kind of like, and we kind of like developed the center too, so that you have like
Mm-hmm.
the creature and its pack,
Yeah.
hunts the wilderness surrounding the quote unquote gates of the prison. So now, what would be the next thing that's like in the actual prison tower proper? Like something that's there to like keep people. Well, mainly that's afraid of like what if it's like it could be the warden. Like we could actually make it for like actual prison staff because we haven't really touched upon that.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of like the idea of the warden not being in the prison demiplane that often, and he only appears if things are really going sideways, and he needs to magically intervene. Because I mean, let's be real; those are spell slots. You're not going to waste spell slots if you don't need to.
So I mean, then is there somebody else in the prison who acts like like a chief of security or something like that?
Yeah,
Who
there's probably a head guard, like someone who's would report directly to the warden. They probably have like some kind of scrying mechanism or way to send messages to one another. That way the warden knows, oh, I have to come in here personally to handle things. It's too much for my staff right now.
could be a warforged.
Not just could be, it should be a warforged. In fact, John, I think all of the guards should be warforged, because why, oh why, would a wizard have a prison with guards that need to sleep? Yeah, that's good. That's very good. Yeah, warforged are the perfect fantasy guards. They don't have any of the regular weaknesses. Like, yeah, they can be killed, but I mean, whatever.
Right, and it could entirely be like it's pre, like you don't necessarily need to put it on Eberron, so they don't even necessarily need to have like a level of sentience other than just it is your mission and duty to make sure that one, nobody who's not supposed to be in the tower is in the tower. Two,
Mm-hmm.
if anybody tries to get up to the tower who's not permitted, you do not let that happen.
Yeah,
Three, if there's somebody who needs to be escorted through the tower for whatever reason, like again, if the wizard's powerful enough, and it could be like, again, I just need to have like somebody escorted through, or I need to keep something detained here. Like I'm gonna keep in the prison. I'm also gonna keep some of my powerful objects, and again, with the illusion that like we're gonna keep people, have people escape. Um, like it's great. Like you make the prison look like an island, and like if they actually get onto the ocean, one they're gonna probably spend so much time and effort thinking that they have to like escape on a boat, and if they
mm-hmm.
actually do, um, it's like the Truman Show. They just hit like a literally like they hit the edge of the
Yeah,
world. It's like a glass dome, and then they realize like, oh, this whole thing is like a giant snow globe.
yeah. I mean, I think that reveal at the end of season 2 would just be so great for you know, for the players. But the one worry I had about making the guards be constructs that don't really have emotions or sentience is it kind of removes the option that players have of having the guards warm up to them, which again is another pretty common prison trope.
Well, that's what that again. That's why you have the Mises group. Like this is
Uh
this
huh.
is when they get into the tower itself and they realize that like nothing here is on their side. If you really want to, you can even take it one step further and you can have it where the guards are like they don't realize that they're guards. Like it could be I don't know, like people's intelligence who's been trapped inside of these constructs, and so like they have the like they think, like when they think that like they go in, they do whatever, and then they quote unquote leave, but all it really is just they just enter to like a shutdown state, and then they dream that they're leaving the jail. Like you could do all kinds of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And you put
That's
them
a
in
that's a good way to take it.
you put them in an extra set of armor, so it's like even when they get that armor off, you realize like, oh, there's metal dudes underneath this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of things you can go with that.
Cool, you're right. I've been convinced. So I think we've done a very good job fleshing out these first three factions, actually. Let's talk about the Warden. Why are they a Warden to a prison demiplane?
Well, so
Like, is it just cuz, or do
there's a
they
couple of
have
ways you
to?
could do that. So
Mhm.
you could have it where the wizard is in charge of the prison because like they have to, or because they've been hired, or whatever. It could be that they're just imprisoning people themselves for whatever reason, and like it's all just one big. It could be an experiment. There's a couple. There's a lot of different ways you could really like play it around. It also could be that like if the wizard's powerful enough, it could be that they're just bored, and as a result, you need to do things that like you said, it doesn't waste spell slots. Like it's fun. I'll
Mhm.
just flip on the TV, watch all these people kind of go about their lives and act out these little things.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll start some turmoil by like I'll make a massive storm hit every once in a while, or I'll starve them all out. And so it could be, you could. It doesn't even necessarily need to be like, um, if it's a powerful enough wizard, it could also be like another race. So it's like it could be like you could make it a mind flayer.
True. Now, what if everyone in this prison has, in some way or another, wronged the wizard or someone the wizard cares about?
I think it'd probably have to be like a large enough group of people that like we're talking like a population in the prison that I'm thinking that's pretty big. Like probably
Yeah.
like more than 100 people. So it's like
Yeah, I'm thinking like a couple hundred, like 500 people.
again, I'm thinking it's like the size of like a small town. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like a big, it's like a castle literally.
Maybe even like 1,000 inmates in this
Yeah.
prison.
So
Okay.
the thing is, that's a lot for the to just to like casually piss
Yeah.
off the wizard.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I mean,
You're
unless
right.
they're hired to do so, or unless, like I said, the wizard literally is just flying around looking for people to snatch up. Because again, it's like, well, I get bored, and every once in a while, I need people to entertain me, or whatever, or just like
Hmm.
just I need fodder for my TV.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the angle of this being an act of malice. Like, there's no reason other than the wizard can, and it's just an oppressive thing that it can do. Um, so then I think the question becomes, why are these the people in the prison? Was it just bad luck, or was
Well,
there
again,
some other thing?
it depends on the motivation of the actual
Yeah.
prison guard, like the warden.
Well,
It's like
well, I think why is the miser in this prison? Was the miser chosen specially, or was it just like luck of the draw? So I think that I'm just now realizing if we have this prison beat in a demiplane, there is actually no way for the miser to get stuff unless things are being created inside the demiplane, or the wizard is giving those things to the miser,
yeah, just as a way of like.
keeping him like he gets a taste of home, a taste of like those
But
pleasures and
not even that. It could
comforts.
be like if it's all a matter of like the facade, the ruse. If you really want to go crazy with it, you do something like you pull an X Men and you do like how much of X Men from earlier than the year 2000 do you know of, Jordan? Jonah, sorry.
Earlier than the year 2000, I kind of want to go with nothing.
All right. Do you know who or what Mojo is?
Mojo, no, I don't
All right.
know
Do me a
who or
favor.
what.
Pull up Google really quick and just type in X Men Mojo and just do an image search.
John, what the hell am I looking at?
So Mojo is this alien from like another planet who abducts people to put on television for intergalactic ratings.
I I can't look away.
So what if you have it where, um, again, you do something where it's like what if the warden isn't? What if it's not just one like wizard dude? What if it's like a whole bunch of them? What if it's like, hey, we're here to entertain like something or other, and so as a result, we need to like keep these people. Like I'm trying to think like how to describe it. Like we need to like we need to have like it needs to be juicy. It needs to be got like entertaining. It needs to be like
Hmm.
engaging. So we need to create villains. We need to create hostilities. Like even if people do escape, it's like as long as if they actually do manage to get all the way through. Um, I mean like and it could be a matter of like they are being captured, but it's like okay, what about this idea? You have somebody, this warden, whoever it is, whatever it is, going around to other prisons and just snatching people up left and right. Of like, oh hey, you've got a prison population issue. I will
Hmm.
take the worst off your hands, or I'll take your nonviolent offenders. I'll take this and that, and like I'll transport them. And then so people know that they're just being transported to another prison. They don't realize, or they're not in the know that like they're actually not in the same plane anymore. And so these things, whatever it is, these things, this thing, whatever it is, always has a constant flow of new
Yeah.
prisoners. Still doesn't want people to escape because they're still technically like, they've done something. Um, and at the same time, um, could be that like, oh yeah, we want to keep it entertaining, so like we'll do this too. So it's like, yeah, this thing goes around to other prisons and jails and whatever, and takes people left and right, so that it can entertain its brood or whatever,
Hmm.
and then yeah, and then, I mean, and then at the end of it, it's like, yeah, if these things do manage to escape, it's like, oh, like you're even if they manage to kill the warden or whatever it is, it could be that there's this whole other race of them who is just like, yeah, you know what? Like you do. Oh God damn it, Jonah! You didn't see Predator 2, did you?
I haven't seen Predator 1 even.
Oh. If the party members do manage to escape, it could be like, yeah, you did a good one, kid. So fine, we'll let you go. But remember, we could always come and grab you back. You do like a cosmic horror story kind of deal.
Yeah, that's great. And I really like this thing we've been building here where, except for the miser, every antagonist is a group of something. And even the miser is in charge of the gang within the prison. I like that there aren't centralized antagonists along the way. So it's not just a matter of PCs find the toughest person in the room, kill them, move on. There are all these steps they're going to have to go through at each turn where they have to, outwit or manage resources in a way that allows them to do that.
Right.
I think it's cool. And I think also setting this up in a prison does make character death less damning because, especially since we're establishing there are maybe even 1,000 people inside this prison, if a PC dies, you're a new prisoner now. You've been here the whole time. You just haven't named you yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I also like what you said about what happens after the prison break, because to me, that would be where the campaign ends. Like the story is just, okay, we've escaped from prison, we're actually good, it's fine. But season 5 comes along, the ratings were high enough to warrant a fifth season. It's now the PCs trying to escape being captured again. They don't know that they're being hunted. They have like a session or two of peace, but no, boom, like the Mojos or whatever we're calling them are they're not about to fully let go of their highest source of ratings in centuries.
Right. Or it even could be that, like, yeah, these things are out there and they're just going to keep operating. So it's like, do you actually go take them on? But in order to do that, you're going to
Yeah.
need.
And do the PCs now have a moral obligation to take down these people? That's so cool.
What, creating this whole species of whatever it is just to, like,
Yeah, no, like I think I feel like I say this in most of our episodes, but I think this is a really cool idea, and it's a shame that I'm not going to get to use it.
I mean, you could totally just, um, make your own campaign out of it.
John, I barely get to run the one campaign that I actually run.
Yeah, but now when you're done, you have an idea that it's just like, all right, I'm gonna just
I
do this.
already I already have other ideas. I already have the sequel campaign all set up and ready to go. But for the one after that, now I have something.
So all right, so I mean, yeah, I think we got it. We got some cool. Oh, I have to actually put down the wardens or the wardens,
Yeah, literally wardens.
or even just in quotes, the warden.
The warden? Yeah. I also like the idea that the warden never actually makes an appearance in the prison. Uh, if anything, they just go to the one location that they need to go to make sure that the guard has what it needs. But yeah, otherwise, you do not really see the warden. They're just a shadowy figure that is talked about in whispers. And when the prisoners say the warden is always watching, they do mean that literally, but they don't know that yet.
Well, the other thing too is like you could easily just make the wardens demons. Like you could very much just make it where like yeah,
Yeah, why not?
the thing that's
It's
doing
kind of
this all is just some infernal creature, and and its entertainment is feeding stuff to watch to those in the abyss. And you
mm-hmm,
could make it where like yeah, if there's like stuff that happens in the prison that leads to like infernal deals and pacts and whatnot, that could totally work too. So you could easily have it where the warden is like like you could make one of those things where like it can't just constrict people, like maybe like this specific race or whatever they are, like they have to, and it's like vampire rules. You have to be invited. You can't just like do
mm-hmm,
whatever. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
there's tons of cool ideas for that.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, no, I think we got it. I think we knocked it out of the park tonight.
Yeah, I mean, truly, this was a return to form. It's like I had never left.
I just have to now I have to just make the whole campaign, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's always a problem. We come up with these great ideas, and they're all such wonderful overarching concepts, but the devil is in the details. It's outside the scope of our show to start delving into those details.
Yep.
Because ultimately, so much of those decisions comes down to the players and the characters they make, and how you as the DM modify your ideas and settings to work with what they've come up with.
But I mean, I think, like I said, like I think there's plenty of places where you all you need to do is like there's nothing wrong with tropes. Like we mentioned it before, there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
no.
tropes, but it's always fun to kind of like twist them around just enough that like you could still do what you want to do, while also come up with something surprising and different. And even like I said, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that we mentioned, it's not like like I said, I base it off of Mojo and whatnot, or the idea of like, you can even say it's the episode of South Park where they find out that the whole Earth is just a reality TV show. But like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Just as long as you make the lead up to the reveal and the game itself engaging, and yeah, it could be like,
Yeah.
you can even make it where like the players manage to escape and they end up in some new planet. It's like you don't even make it back home; you make it to somewhere completely different, and that's
Yeah.
where
What if they make it to the whatever layer of hell the demons are watching from, and now they have to escape from hell?
right.
It's fun.
So yeah, no, I think there's a lot of cool stuff to work with there.
Oh, hard agree. This is dope as hell.
All right, so I'm going to thank everybody so much for watching this either now, currently, or at a later time. We're kind of a little bit early, but I honestly would rather just wrap it up here than drag on for an extra 6 minutes. Jonah, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Anything you want to go over just before we wrap up?
Yes, actually, John, you mentioned at the top of the cast that you had just finished the Adventure Zone, so I would like to plug another wonderful D&D actual play podcast called Not Another D&D Podcast, often abbreviated to NADPod. They have completed 3 campaigns, one of which being a 100 episode epic that perfect, and then 2 smaller ones, and they're currently in their 4th campaign, like the a more major one, and it's really cool. Like everyone involved is an ex-person from College Humor. The playing is really nice, like really nice and tight. The DMing style I think is really good for this for 2 of the campaigns. Some of the players take up the DM's chair, and it's really fun to see their perspectives and how
Mhm.
they like run games. And again, from a world building perspective, the world of that first campaign is so good. Like it's got a lot of very good details. And yeah, I recommend it. NADDPOD NADPOD. Check it out.
I would also recommend on the same levels one of probably my current favorite D&D podcast is Dungeons and Daddies.
I've
It's
heard
not
of that.
it's not a BDSM podcast. It is 4 friends playing in the Forgotten Worlds, where it's dads who get transported into another world and have to rescue their sons and get into all kinds of shenanigans. It's I don't know what episode they're up to. I think they might be in the 70s. Um,
Wow.
maybe the 50s. It's a really good show. Like it's a lot of really good funny comedians. Even like the first episode or two had me dying. I would say if you really like D&D podcasts, Dungeons and Dirties is really solid. There's a couple of like lulls here and there, but I very rarely find any show that manages going to hold all the way through from like start to finish with foot on the gas. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, especially for shows that aren't scripted, like there's just going to be some episodes that are a little less amazing than others, but I'm sure the whole process is just as good as you're saying it is.
Yeah, some of their episodes that they've been on recently are like some of my most favorite things just ever.
Really? Wow. Okay.
So, all right. So yeah, check out those recommendations.
Yeah,
For in
totally.
terms of Long Island Tabletop, in terms of Lit Network, check us out tomorrow. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Wednesday morning at 6:30 a.m. for Over Coffee, as well as at 9 o'clock. No, 10 o'clock I think for Dave Master, Game Master Dave. And yeah, I think that's the next shows up on our schedule. Again, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Be safe out there and enjoy your evening.
Be good to each other.